We don't want to shut the government down. I do not want the United States to default on its debt.
Animosity and intractable intolerance of Republicans and Democrats for each other has led to this.
All right, so we wanted to have a very lively and spirited debate today, so we are joined now by Tea Party member and insurance broker C. Stephen Tucker and Illinois Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez, whose book, Still Dreaming, My Journey from the Barrio to Capitol Hill, is now in stores. So welcome to you two as well. Well, a lot of people, Congressman, are not happy with you and your colleagues on the Hill, and there are a lot of blame games going around. Who do you think is to blame for this situation with the government being shut down?
First of all, I went to Congress to expand health care, to give everybody in America, at least at a minimum, what every member of Congress has. We have health care, takes really good care of my wife and my children and me. Why is it that I, as a member of Congress, should deny that ability to every American to have the same access to health care? And so, when you take a continuing resolution, which is only going to fund the government for 8 weeks, that's all it is, until we have a budget, and you say, unless you eliminate Obamacare, which is what they call it. It's actually the Affordable Care Act, but they like to demonize it, so they figure, let's call it what it's not. Let's give it a name that has some pejorative connotation to it. I really like Obamacare. I call it Obamacare everywhere I go. Forget about the Affordable Care Act. It is what it is. It is the health care plan that was passed by President Barack Obama. Now, we passed it in the House. We passed it in the Senate. I remember they said, oh, it'll be unconstitutional. We went all the way to the Supreme Court. Boom. Supreme Court says it's constitutional. Then we had an election. Everybody remember the election last November 6th? Yeah. Their party said, if we win, we're going to eliminate Obamacare. Well, 5 million more people voted for Barack Obama than voted for the Republican nominee. It sounds to me like we won. Now, moving forward, they now say, if you're going to get a continuing resolution, we're going to hold hostage the government of the United States for something that we lost in the legislative branch, we lost at the Supreme Court, and that we lost before the American people, the most important court of the land. So all I have to say is, I went to expand health care for the American people, and I'm not going to allow someone to pass a continuing resolution which diminishes the ability of people to gain access to the health care they so need.
Stephen Teller, I know that, Stephen Teller, I'm sorry, that's the rock star. Tucker, you disagree a lot with what the Congressman just said, I'm sure, but is it the moral thing to do to shut the government down to get their way, Republicans get their way here?
No, I disagree with the President's decision to shut it down. What should have been done...
Why is it the President's decision to shut it down?
Why is it the President's decision?
Yeah.
Well, the Republicans, under the Constitution, as you notice I'm wearing my tie, we the people, the Constitution says that we have separations of power in Congress, and the House has the ability and the power to decide what they want to fund and not fund. So they send all the funding over to the United States Senate to fund every function of government except for the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, Congressman. It's not the Affordable Care Act. And that we didn't have any funding for that because there are millions of people all over the nation that are losing their health insurance plans right now. The President promised that you can keep your plan if you like your plan. I have clients that are losing their health insurance plans. They did nothing wrong, and their deductibles are increasing. Their out-of-pocket expenses are going to $12,700 a year.
I want to stop you for 1 second there. Why is it then that the House voted 46 times just to repeal it, as opposed to trying to fix some of those things? I think everyone agrees, including the President, agrees there are major problems with this that need to be addressed. Yes. 3 major provisions of this have been changed since July. Yes. So if that's in fact the case, why not just start to work on dealing with it as opposed to tearing the whole thing out?
Yeah, well, we tried to fix many portions of it, but every time it gets to the Senate, it's blocked. Because this is the President's signature law. I understand why he's defending it, because it is his signature law. And he's very proud of it. So are most Democrats, like the Congressman. But those of us in the health insurance field, we're dealing with the ramifications of this law every day.
But let me ask you this. How do you justify shutting down the government because you don't like Obamacare? Tying Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, to the budget and running the government, why does that have to be tied in and shut down the government in order to get, it's like the Congressman said, for the average person, I would think it's like holding something hostage. Okay, you know, my mom and I are having a fight. Well, my brother and I can't figure things out. Well, you both won't go. It's like there has to be some give or take there.
I agree, and I think what Republicans did by funding every function of government except for the patient protection and Affordable Care Act is much agreement between both parties. Every function of government should be funded. That's why the Republicans appropriate all that money. The Senate has the right under the Constitution to decide whether they want to accept that money and spend it or not. They chose not to do that, and that is why we are in a partial government shutdown. Only 17% has been shut down.
But let's make very clear. We even see it in my friend's description of what it is. Is it the ACA? Is it the patient?
Protection
but one thing,
and Affordable Care.
Fine. And you said that. You've corrected me. I stand corrected. Then it is not Obamacare.
Correct.
Then why is it that the Tea Party insists in calling it Obamacare? Something that you have just described, it is not. And I think we all know why it isn't. Because they want to give it a negative, pejorative connotation. First thing they said, the Tea Party said about our president, he is the president of the United States of America. They said he's not a Christian, that somehow he's a foreigner, that he was born in a foreign. They did everything they could to demonize and discredit him as an American citizen and as a lawfully elected president of the United States. It didn't work. 5 million more people voted for him on November 6th. We should get over it, and we should respect. You say we the people. So if you say we the people, no, but I think it's important. If we say we the people, because we like to talk about the Constitution of the United States. Well, you know, the Constitution of the United States says he's the President of the United States. He's duly sworn in. And everything that has happened thus far says that he's the President. So
you
all
think
I'm
it's
trying
personal.
To,
you think it's a personal thing.
Can I just say one thing? I have problems with Barack Obama on issues of immigration. I have problems with him. But there are 200 Republicans who would vote against sunlight if he sponsored it. If an eclipse came to the United States of America, they would vote against it.
To add to the conversation happening there at the end of the table, you know, it's not all Republicans. It's a certain group of Republicans, in particular the Tea Party. And you speak about the Constitution and upholding the Constitution. You speak about conservative values. Right. But a true conservative conserves. They conserve the government. They uphold. I don't think the four founders put in the Constitution that the government should be up and running because they never thought about it closing. But closing government, shutting it down, is a completely radical move. It's not conservative. It's radical. So what do you say to those people that, I mean, you're not really being a conservative, the party.
Okay, so when it was shut down every year under Carter, was he a radical for shutting down government? When Clinton shut down government? They never attached. There, at that time when it happened with Clinton, there were already 7 out of the 11 appropriations passed. Currently, there's no appropriations passed, and they never attached something like the health care to the budget. That's incorrect.
But it isn't. I was there in 1996, and here's what you can recall. Newt Gingrich took a trip with President Clinton to Israel to bury the former Prime Minister of Israel. And on the way back, he said, they put me in the back, right? They disrespected me as Speaker of the House. That's why I sent down a continuing resolution that was even harsher. And they closed the government down. Now, that was a personal. Now, they closed it down for another 16, 17 days. But there was a little difference. And the difference is that Newt Gingrich was in charge of the House Republicans. And he negotiated each and every day with President Clinton. They're saying it's our way or no way. And in the end, if you recall, in 1996, what did the Republican majority do? Well, they passed different kinds of legislation because they had to make up. Today, the American public, I think, sees this. Look, let's be clear with one another. Ted Cruz, the Canadian, that's a member of the U.S. Senate.
The freshman Republican?
Yeah, the freshman Republican that was born in Canada, now is running the House of Representatives because there are 30, 40 very extreme Tea Party members of the Republican majority who say to Speaker Boehner, if you allow a vote on the continuing resolution without doing this, we will take you out as Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich never had that kind of rebellion on his hands. And, you know, I may have disagreed with Newt Gingrich, but at least the Republican Party was a Republican Party that spoke to one another and united.
But Congressman, is there not, hold on one second, Stephen, is there not some room for the President to move here, to sort of come toward the principles of finding a way to make this affordable, because it's the Affordable Care Act, right? I mean, it's a very expensive piece of legislation. It's got a lot of mechanisms in it that, to Mr. Tucker's point, are not working as well as they need to be. Isn't there any room for the president to move here to meet people in the middle? Listen, there are going to be 20 or 40 congressmen who are not ever going to be interested, as you pointed out, are going to vote against sunlight. But there is a coalition between Republicans and Democrats that the Speaker can call on to pass this thing and get it through. Why not that move?
Disconnected. To continue, because here's why. I'm for gun control, right? I've lost that fight time and time again. Let's say the next time there's a budget and Luis Gutierrez with 30 other Democrats say, we close down the government until you give us gun control and eliminate the AK-47s and the Uzis that are causing devastation. Many people might say, wow, that's a good thing. But you know what people would also say? What does one thing have to do with the other? They would say, Luis, win gun control on its merit. Right. Don't mix gun control with the budget and the Social Security check and our veterans checks and mix one thing with the other. They don't have. I'm making people suffer for an issue that is unrelated.
I want to hear your reply to that.
The person who's making the people suffer is the President and the Senate. They were given every penny.
Specifically how?
The House appropriated, as the Constitution says they have the right to do, funding for every function of government except for the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Harry Reid chose not to spend that money. So we have 17% of government shut down. It's not a full government shutdown. All these government workers that are furloughed right now, they're not furloughed because of the Republicans. They spent that money. They sent it to the Senate. The Senate says, we choose not to spend that money. We choose to put 17% of the government and shut it down. We choose to shut the national parks. We choose to turn the veterans away from their own World War II memorial and barricade it, because we will not spend the money that the House of Representatives appropriated for us. And the reason we call Obamacare is because the President has spent $17 million of our taxes using the term Obamacare on Google and YouTube and everywhere else to appropriate his or to promote his law. So we're calling it Obamacare. The President calls it Obamacare.
I just want to say,
is it moral?
Here's the reason the President calls it Obamacare,
to shut down?
He calls it Obamacare because you guys kept insisting, and you made it a negative. And you know what he did? He made it a positive.
I'll answer that question, Ro. No, it's not moral. It's not moral to shut down government, because you know what? There's 9 million mothers and babies right now that need formula for their children. There are a lot of people that are suffering.
There are veterans that need to be buried.
Absolutely. It's not moral. It's absolutely immoral to shut down government.
And Harry Reid should be ashamed of himself for shutting down government, for not spending the money that was given to him by the House. Listen, the Constitution says all spending bills originate in the House. We spent money for every function of government, sent it over to Harry Reid. We've passed 8 bills since the government shutdown, 17% of it's only shut down, and every time Harry Reid turned away funding for NHI for children with cancer and said, why would we want to fund that?
He didn't technically turn it down. He said he wasn't going to pick and choose which programs got funding and which didn't.
Oh, no. He said he would not want to fund it.
Hold on. We're going to put a little